MIG17 and the SR-71 later was pushing the boundaries. Here it goes, the P-38L Lightning. Within only a few weeks. Airborne now, and it'll be starting its display in about 6 minutes' time. But filing it out onto the runway, aircraft had hoped so orders for them were cancelled, though they were used as master bomber pathfinders. But now, the Spitfire 9 of the old Flying Machine Company runs in to start our show proper. The availability of proper long-range escort fighters to make these missions a success. Then their crews were some of the 5,100 aircraft of the 8th Air Force that were lost on all operations between 1942 and 45. In then for its first pass round the west comes Sally B. On one side as a result of its participation in the 1990 movie of that name, in which it was very much the busiest B-17 during the filming. The aircraft brought into land, giving you a really good view of the 100th Bomb Group emblem on the tail. A really elegant display. Thank you to Ellie Sullingbow as ever for providing the aeroplane, and thanks to the crew headed today by Captain Andrew Dixon with co-pilot Pete Kinsey. This despite the fact that it's a team that's celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and which for very many years has carried out an annual tour to Europe. So it's quite cool, I think, that we got them to IW and Duxford. In this genre of aircraft that you will see a really tight routine that fits into the IW and Duxford arena very, very well. Easy to see why this outfit has become so renowned. For example, with the extra DA330LX from the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. To present to you for the first time here the Royal Jordanian Falcons.
My punch is probably falling off the In they come then to begin with a quarter clover manoeuvre in box formation, in which they start their display and then pulling up still in box formation into a barrel roll, describing the inside of an imaginary barrel lying on its side in the sky. Negative G outside turn, maintaining immaculate formation. And they still do so as they roll out, heading away from us to the right. 92, graduating 3 years later from the King Hussein Air College, and he has flown 2 of the Royal Jordanian Air Force's now retired fighter types, the Northrop F5 and the Dassault Mirage F1. Really challenging the manoeuvre here. A push and pull. You see them exiting inverted from that half-Cuban manoeuvre. The four pilots experiencing a large amount of negative G, extremely uncomfortable for them. But now they pull through more conventionally to complete that sequence. Back into box formation, pulling up into a loop. Very significant roll rate, brilliant power to weight ratio. All the better, of course, with the more powerful 315 horsepower engine on the 330LX model we see here. Prior to this, the team started out in 1976 with just 2 6S2A specials. They later increased the team size to 3 of those there. The twin-turboprop Airbus C295X tactical transport, today in service with the Royal Jordanian Air Force. Every theatre of World War II. We think of it particularly as the L4 model, L for liaison, used in Europe as an artillery spotter, particularly during the Battle of Normandy. But out in front of us performing solo is our special guest from the French wing of the Commemorative Air Force, over from France for a short tour. It's their
with the J365 that they call the Little Blue Cloud. The US Navy and Marine Corps operated two in the Pacific, but they were also assigned to US Navy blimp squadrons. The intention was to use the Cub, get this, as a parasite reconnaissance aircraft to help search for enemy submarines, to the blimp reattaching to it. They modified two aircraft for trials in March 1944. The first of them had the undercarriage removed because it wasn't meant to land back on land, Air Force that flew in Vietnam. And these two aircraft come to us from a team called the Patria Quixote from Spain, making their British Airshow debut at Duxford this weekend, and with an aeroplane that's very rarely These are actually exportational twin-engine aeroplanes. It did bring some drawbacks. The rear engine was a bit prone to overheating, and above all, the noise levels are very high indeed. Nonetheless, this was an aircraft that served very well as the USAF in Vietnam. Shoot the FAC, don't shoot on one of them, the FAC on the other. These were markings applied to some black painted O2s that were used as night forward air control platforms in Vietnam. Takeoff and landing. Definitely demonstrated during this display by this twin-turboprop aeroplane with two Garrett T-76 engines. That twin boom design, incidentally, had several practical advantages. It meant you could drop cargo or paratroops from the removable portion of the rear fuselage, and it also put the tail surfaces in the aircraft's prop wash, which allowed single-engine takeoffs if necessary, even from unprepared strips. And the design means the crew has excellent visibility from the cockpit, which is positioned well in front of those twin turboprop engines. And when you compare this aircraft with earlier FAC and battlefield reconnaissance aeroplanes like the Cessna O2s that we've just seen, the advantages are obvious. The Bronco is much faster, so they could reach its operating areas that much more quickly, and it could cruise at higher. Comes to us from the Bronco demo team in Belgium. It's an ex-Luftwaffe target front model, but we use it to recall here the Broncos of the Vietnam War.
That's in that with the rather long designation of Short Vertical Takeoff and Landing Light Attack Squadron VAL. MIG17, a Polish license-built version of the Mikołaj MiG17F. Improvement over MiG-17 came in other ways, particularly their high-speed handling. The basic MiG-17 started coming out of the Duxford coverage where it continues to NATO rebuilding
of the programme. At that time, the late Mark Hanna, one of the co-founders with his late father Ray of the LFMC, was getting very much into the jet business. They intended to put this MiG-17 back into the air. In fact, it carried out this year with Bart Marchicik at the controls. If he wants to fight a MiG-17, he can't turn with them. In fact, later, even some early F-16 fighting Falcon pilots found this veteran jet too much to handle in a close-in fight. Its A4 Skyhawk, A6 Intruder and A7 Corsair attack jets should not engage the MiG-17. Later, a Chinese-built model was actually evaluated in Vietnam, though not in combat, by F4 Phantom. And the North Vietnamese MiG pilots realised they could defeat the American jets by drawing them into a close-in, turning dogfight, in which they were too close for missiles to be brought to bear, and in which kills would instead be achieved with guns. Plus, the fact that it was such a small aeroplane made it hard for them to maintain visual contact. Versions, mainly cannon-armed, some of them were solely missile-armed, and they were used well into the 1970s by the Soviet Air Defense Force. This aircraft became very widely used across the Warsaw Pact and the broader Soviet sphere of influence. It wasn't for long the fastest or the highest flying Soviet intercept, but it was a brilliant dogfighter. There it is being lit. This year, not long before Coventry Airport closed and moving to its current base at Wolverhampton Hasty Green. The ceremony was ordered by the US Army Air Corps, it was then, in 1938, and it was delivered to the base of Bollings Field in Washington DC in September 1940. This were both requisitioned by one of the legendary figures in the development of American military aviation. The upper skylight, similar to the original Douglas sleeper transports. Sky Trooper were used in large numbers, of course, during the liberation of Europe following D-Day in June 1944 and on through all of the major airborne forces operations thereafter. But where did the story of the military Douglas DC-3 begin? Well, it did so before the war, and it did so in part with this aeroplane, the Douglas C-41A, the second ever military DC-3. While the C-41 backtracks a a quick reminder that our next flying event here, also American themed, is our Flying Day, the Americans, which takes place on Friday the 24th of July. Display is a man who knows this aircraft inside
the jet engines. Then they said you must be able to remain in control of the aircraft. And with the extra large rudder, elevator and ailerons on that aircraft, we can easily maintain control of the aircraft in any sort of scenario if we have a flame out of one of the engines.
The helicopters or F-35Bs or Harriers in the calculation. That's the best thing, I think. It's slightly less cost.
In the hovering manoeuvres, this aircraft is an aircraft, it's not a helicopter. You see aerobatic aircraft that can do flight hovering, but it's not flying the plane. No aircraft can really do aerobatic manoeuvres ascending. There is a descending, as you can see, which is turning Typhoon now ascending. And trying to create consistency when you lose Typhoon. I'll just remind everyone, it's 173 days to Christmas, and Richard is trying to create a Christmas tree at a nil wing distance, which is the star then at the top of the Christmas tree, and your flat skin and create the front of the Christmas tree. And on nil wing distance, it's fantastic, but today, I think we're going to create Christmas cake today. As I mentioned, the aircraft does decrease in weight considerably during the performance. The jet engines are so thirsty, they will drink 60 litres of jet fuel in 10 minutes, will burn through 40 litres of smoke oil and about 20 litres of avgas. So the hovering manoeuvres are much easier to obtain when the aircraft is lighter at the end of the performance. It loses weight that rapidly, it uses so much fuel. 100–1,800 pounds depending on fuel load, and we can have a total with the propeller of 2,200 pounds of thrust, more thrust.
Out of our fleet, we got about 40 aircraft. We brought this afternoon in Warburg. I hope you will enjoy now our printed display, and not to forget, if you ever make it for Duxford, Austria, there's a stop at our hangars, and you're always welcome. So with this, I wish you a great time, and in German, danke und auf Wiedersehen. Danke very much. Certainly endorse
and the North American P-51D Mustang. come over the motorway, Corsair and Mustang. And here they come over the motorway, Corsair and Mustang. And then executing another 450-degree roll, breaking away once again at 9G. Pointing back towards us and rolling through 300 degrees, and now showing you the top side of the Typhoon in a negative G outside turn. Days a week, 365 days a year. Targets, of course, can include Russian bombers and other Russian aircraft probing the edges of Britain's airspace, but also airliners with security concerns and so forth. And Typhoons have also been manning QRA on NATO's Baltic and Icelandic air policing missions, of course very important with the conflict in Ukraine. Multiple deployments have been made to Eastern Europe. Operational sorties, and it's very much been a pattern that's continued ever since. Operation Shader, the effort against the so-called Islamic
about, must be one of the ultimate examples of Anglo-American cooperation in aviation.
The last thing, should we always
The result was